So it's my honor to, uh, am I audible?
Yeah, Yogesh, you're audible.
Okay, yeah. So yes, so I've been honored to introduce and welcome Dr. Charles Savage. He brings close to 4 decades of experience in helping organizations in building a foundation of trust, learning, openness, creativity and collaboration, co-creating and profitable business opportunities. He is a founding president of KEE, which stands for the Knowledge of Era Enterprises, internationals based as well. Adding on, he is also visiting faculty at various global B schools and brings together great practical expertise in the matters of management and leadership with deep philosophical insights, extreme emotional intelligence as well. Sir, we are delighted to have you and are waiting to hear from you, sir.
Thank you, Yogesh. Thank you very much. And thank you to my colleagues, Professor Azam and Professor Singh. It's an honor to be with you all.
Charles, so you have the screen access. I believe you wanted to share something with the people.
Yes. Being Teachers' Day, I really want to thank India for all that I have learned from you and your culture. It was in 1992 that I first arrived in Kolkata, and I was giving a presentation there thinking that I knew everything. And after about 20 minutes, I said to myself, whoops, I need to slow down and listen. And for these almost 30 years now, I have been slowing down, listening and learning from India, a wonderful guru. So if I may, could I, first of all, Yogesh, thank you. You sent me about 17 wonderful questions, and they're very timely. And what I thought I would do is to put together a brief presentation to set the context and show you what I've learned. Would that be possible?
Absolutely. So you have the co-hosting access.
Okay, thank you very much. Let me just find. Yes. Okay, can you see this screen?
Yes, sir, it's visible, sir.
Okay. Now, what I saw was not just getting a job, but really our common challenge is to co-create a wiser future. So let me take you through that briefly, if I may. Let's see if this is going to work. Okay. As many of you are in the transition of saying, how do I go from my college, university, MBA courses into a corporation, perhaps we shouldn't just focus on the job itself, but put it in a larger context. When we go back, we will see that at year zero, even up until about 1700, India and China had each about a quarter of the world's GDP. Thanks to this fascinating study, I hope you've seen it, from one of your colleagues. I believe he's in either Heidelberg or Chennai. And the question is, what happened with India going from 32% down to 1.7 in 1900? Yes, it's come up a bit. If you look at today's GDP, you will see that India is at now 7.69% improvement, but it's not where it could be. And the question is not just, how do I get a job, but how do I work together with my colleagues to bring a new engine, a new spirit to your wonderful country? So if we look here, it may be that soon, and it actually could be sooner than 2021 or 21, but perhaps in 5 years, India will be the largest country in the world, followed by, interestingly enough, Nigeria, and then thirdly, by China, US, Pakistan. So things are changing and changing dramatically. So how do you build a vibrant economy in the world's largest country? And it's not just for the next few years. If you look at the larger picture, as you know, our solar system began about 13.7 billion years ago, and it was about 4.7 that our Earth, our solar system, appeared, and our sun, being a fairly stable system, will last about 10 billion years. So we have another 5 billion years to go. But the best I can find is that we as humans could perhaps last on this planet for the next 500 to 800 million years. So are we building an economy for our great-grandchildren and their great-grandchildren and their great-grandchildren, or are we trying to just exploit things so we have immediate success today, but we put the future at risk? As you will know, remember Carl Linnaeus talked about humans as Homo sapiens sapiens, humans wisely wise. Unfortunately, in our schools, we talk about being smart, but rarely wise. I wonder why that is. And if you will remember Bernard de Mandeville's Fable of the Bees, and if you have not read it, please go back and look it up. And by the way, I will share these slides with you so that you can do reference. Here he said in 1714, "Then leave complaints, fools only strive to make a great and honest hive. Enjoy the world's conveniences, be fated in war, yet live in ease. Without great vices, it is a vain utopian seated in the brain." In other words, don't really try to solve things, just exploit things as much as you can. And this was at the core, in many ways, of English thinking. And as you remember, Macaulay's Minute, his speech in Parliament in February 2nd, 1835, when he said the following: "It is, I believe, no exaggeration to say that all the historical information which has been collected from all the books written in the Sanskrit language is less valuable than what might be found in the most paltry abridgments used in preparatory schools in England." In other words, there had been a discussion at this period, and the East India Company had been supporting some Sanskrit companies, but he basically said, let us ignore the wisdom of India. So in effect, in the next years, the Gurukul system, which was brilliant, was killed. And this is really the source in many ways to your culture of mugging up. Learn to think of what other people are saying, but don't ask your own questions. Simply learn, say yes, sir, and follow instructions. And I hope that we can get beyond that. So if we take a step back and think, the range of what I see and do is limited by what I fail to notice. And because we fail to notice that we fail to notice, there is little we can do to change until we notice, having failed to notice, shapes our thoughts and deeds. What more could we notice than we typically do? Now, a lot of you have heard of Greta, the Swedish young lady who has been challenging the world about sustainability and climate change. My real hero is Nachiketa, because he realized that his father's giving away cattle as he was growing old, cattle that didn't really amount to anything. So he questioned his father, and as you remember, his father got angry at him. And so Nachiketa said to his father, "Well, to whom would you give me?" And his father, enraged, said, "I'll give you to Yama." you know who Yama is. And so rather than crying and going to mom, he said, okay, I'll go to Yama's house and talk with him about this. And so he spent 3 days there, almost hungry because he didn't get anything to eat. So Yama was very apologetic and gave him 3 boons or requests. The first request is to reconnect with his father. The second was to understand your wonderful fire ceremonies. And the third was, what is death, or really what is life? And in the course of the Katha Upanishad, I read, ignorance of their ignorance, yet wise in their own esteem. These deluded men, proud of their vain learning, go round and round like the blind, led by the blind. And that's really led me to ask, what is my ignorance? And be even more open to your culture, other cultures, and that's what I've been learning since then. So in India today, a lot of exciting things are happening. You have the Transforming India program, Make in India, Digital India, Exploring the Future. It's a lively time for people to come alive, and that's what excites me. And let's see how we can build on that. As you know, in the industrial era for the last 70 years, from about 1950, the industrial era, of course, began in about 1776 with James Watt's steam engine, but it really got going in about 1950. Everything was pretty steady, predictable, orderly, and defined. And a lot of the questions that you were asking really said, how do I deal with this uncertainty, volatility, complexity, and ambiguity? And those are the big challenges that we have today. No easy answers, and we certainly see them everywhere. So as we go from the industrial to the digital, from the high to the low carbon net zero, from smart to wise, and from competition to co-creativity, we need a whole new set of appreciations and ways we work together. One of the things that the industrial era has taught us is analytics, problem solving, but we need synthesis to see complex interactive forces beyond what we can see with our 5 senses. And this is already for the last 3,000 to 5,000, maybe longer years. Indian thought was based on synthesis rather than analytics. Can we recapture that? This is an example of the synthetic thinking that we have to see or hear. And as we go from the hunters and gatherers, agricultural, industrial, we're moving into the complex and chaotic world. That's what we need, new ways of thinking, working, and working together. And these are examples, and you can look them up when you have these slides, systems thinking, complex adaptive systems, and so forth. And you will look at Satya Nadella, who has really turned around Microsoft in a beautiful way. And he talked about reality in terms of mixed reality and our ability not only to see reality visually, but to envision the wisdom of the past and the possibilities of the future are before us. So we are at the point of what's called the Great Reset. And if you haven't seen this, please take a look at this. This is really at the World Economic Forum's site, the Great Reset, the paradigm shift, and the movement beyond human ignorance. And please sign up. You will see wonderful, complex graphs around different subjects. And you will see there the latest concepts related to that brought to you daily. So you need, and we all need, to follow these developments. In addition, and I'm going fast because I want to have time for discussion. I don't know how many of you in your academic world have spent some serious time on the Sustainability Development Goals, but they are really critical for our future, especially 12, which is responsible consumption, and the word responsible is there, I realized that your concept of Dharma is not only just ethics or what we should do, but is really the spirit of deep responsibility. And 5, gender equality. We need to realize that as we see one another in the fullness of who we are individually, then we begin to get beyond our competitive, jealous, prejudiced ways of thinking. So there's a lot there that we have to work on. Now, as you're developing your CVs, you might want to look at this site. It says that only 2% of the resumes pass the first round. Why is that? It also reminds you that you should connect your CVs on Facebook, Google, LinkedIn, and so forth. But let's look at that in depth. Some of you may have found for your resume the idea of the Europass, which is a very nice format that you probably could use well in India itself. And I've given you the link for that. And after you identify who you are and you give your telephone number and address, the first section where the arrow is really what you're looking for. And rather than ask the company to say, look how good I am, if you at this point include an understanding of what the company where you are applying to would like to achieve, its dilemmas, its challenges, you would awaken an interest there that could greatly enhance the quality of your CV and open some very good discussions with this possible company. One of the things that you, I hope, are already doing is using Google Alerts, where you put in the companies that you were interested in, the industries and the themes, and daily you will see what is happening there, and that will give you a feel. So I would suggest that you actually custom design your CVs for the companies that you were applying to, rather than just having a general that you send out to everybody. And then it's not only the companies there. What are the companies and the organizations that are working on the future? And I put together a list of the environmental organizations in India that you could look at. Would some of those be interesting to work with? Also, there's things like green jobs. Go to that in Wikipedia and you will see a fantastic list there. In addition, there are new organizational models that are evolving. Conscious capitalism started by an Indian in Boston not long ago with a wonderful book. The B Corporation, circular economy, green business, sustainable businesses. Seek out some models where you have your passion and you could work with some of these. Now, this is, for me, something that I saw in Chennai just about it was 12 years ago in a newspaper article in the Times of India. And the Om symbol that you all know began to intrigue me. And so I started doing some studies on it and realized that most of us live in the Jagrata stage, the waking stage, the world of 5 senses. Yes, there's Swapana, where we dream. There's the deeper sleep. But what is intriguing is the Turiya stage. And this has intrigued me over the last 12 years, and I'm beginning to understand what that could be. As we look, time is linear at the bottom, but it is richer and dynamic at the top. And we go from the ego on the bottom to interacting with nature on the top. And as I put it together, I realized that Pantalya's Ashtanga, the 8 limbs of yoga, are really what take me from the external and internal disciplines to a much more reflective capability. And if you see these 6 here, that really gets at systems thinking, dynamic systems, and so forth. So you have a framework that is absolutely wonderful, and we all need, even in the West. And this is where Macaulay, when he basically in his speech in Parliament ignored India, this is the richest. Could we build an economy based on the Turiya rather than the Grata? And this is my question to you. Could we move in that direction? So a lot said in a few words, and I'm sorry for taking the time this way, but with Saraswati's wisdom, with the music and rhythm of her zitra, could we create and learn how to live lightly? That means zero carbon, lively, rich culture, and wisely. So we really learn the deeper dimensions of life. Thank you very much. I'll stop here and I'm open to any thoughts or questions. Okay. All right. I hope I'm.
Yogesh, over to you if you have questions.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So firstly, thanks a lot for connecting the Indian mythological things with the current business and giving us a lot of insights about the management and we have to learn from the history as well. So that was a beautiful linkage between which we all have to inculcate in our life as well. And it was a pride for us as well to hear about our own culture and our own tradition also. So I have a few questions which has bunch up, not with the ones which I've shared with you earlier. So this is a different ones. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. So one first question is goes as you have worked with students across the globe. Now the world is just one large community and businesses are operating globally. How do you see any differences between the students from India and the other parts of the world?
Thank you very much. What I see on the part of all the young people is an openness, a concern, a wanting to make a difference. I've certainly taught in India at Christ University since 2008. I've taught in Saudi Arabia and a women's university in Jeddah. I teach here in Germany. I teach sustainability at the Technical University here in Munich. There we have 200 students from 39 countries, often many Indians there. I think that it's not so much the difference, but the common aspiration, the concern that we have to rewrite the business book, rethink finance, and let go of many of the paradigms that we've lived with. And that's why I mentioned Nachiketa. He was actually questioning some of the common paradigms of his age. Hope that helps.
Yes, sir. Relearn, rethink, and it's about all redoing the things which has been done. So the second question is about any particular skills the students must have so that they can become more employable globally.
Two things, curiosity and question asking. How many of you have had a course or a section on asking good questions? I know you've been asked thousands of questions, but have you built your ability to ask questions? That's my question to you.
Anyone wants to answer?
Yogesh, Yogesh, have you had in any of your university or graduate studies a section on how to ask powerful questions?
No, sir.
Okay, that's a challenge for our academic system because we need to awaken that ability in you rather than you're just following instructions and mugging up. Mugging up is a tragedy.
Yes, sir. So the next question is with regards to a book which you have written, The Fifth Generation Management, and we would like to hear about that from, in a nutshell, uh, abstract from your side, what exactly the book is all about and how important is for us to as you have said in the book, which says that executives have to be more vibrant and interrogating to check the possibilities of co-creation in the knowledge area. So can you give an insight about the book for the audience, sir?
Good. I think Professor Singh was talking about the IITs and the importance of that. I actually started the book when I was working at Digital Equipment Corporation, and the Japanese were talking about the fifth generation computer. We don't hear much about that since then, but I realized that it had to be integrated and more based not on the boxes and lines of the industrial era, but the Venn diagram where we work among and between all of the components in our companies. And as that began in Japan, we also know that Japan is talking about society 5.0. And I don't know if that concept has come alive in India, but that's where we weave together all of the different components: government, finance, insurance, health, manufacturing, and service in an interactive model. And we can certainly do that much more. Yogesh, is Society 5.0 a concept that you've studied in any way?
No, sir, not yet.
Okay, sorry about this, but I just challenge you to do that. It really is an interactive work, and Professor Azam's talking about how we communicate, discuss, and reflect together. It's absolutely essential, and we need to take that to a higher level. So I support, thank you, what you were saying.
Thanks for the response, sir. So the last, on the next question. So you focus on the knowledge era. Is it relevant or the technology is taking over? The reason which I'm in the context, what I'm asking is that many of the roles, the technology has taken over the human intelligence. For example, in the terms of stock market, which as all finance students would reiterate on that, about algorithms, which is mainly important right now, and the businesses is more about analytics. So can you give us insight on this particular area?
Sure, very good. The whole development of fintech is happening so fast, we don't fully understand that. And the cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, and the others have us puzzled. The head of the European Bank has basically said that those are speculative assets. What India is doing with the digital wallet is actually creating directly from the government to individuals a way to transfer funds to them. It also gives them a way to control and to monitor these finances. So it has a positive and a scary side. We need to look much more carefully at the whole way we are redesigning and redeveloping our financial systems. We also see that the de-dollarization is beginning. But more than this, you mentioned knowledge. It's not knowing about, but it's being able to reflect on and find the meaning of what's going on. And in your Indian culture, you talk about consciousness in a way that we in the West don't fully understand what that is about. And I'm gradually understanding the richness of Chit, or your consciousness. That's what we need to bring a richness to life, to conversations, to business, and so much more.
True, sir. And the next one, there's a common quote that people don't leave their jobs, but they leave because of their managers. So many of us will be entering corporate life in a couple of months, a couple of years. So, and we'll be working with people who are very senior in work.
Yes, very good question. And in a sense, it builds on what Professor Azam was talking about. We, as if you remember the Om symbol at the lower level, we see these things as objects. We see the other people as objects and we compete against them. And so we look for their weaknesses. And if there is a boss that is constantly putting down and pointing out the weaknesses of his or her employees, they're likely to leave. How do we learn to see one another as co-creators and appreciate one another's abilities and encourage that? And I think that's also what you were trying to get at, Professor Azam, as we bring out and energize one another. That's what we need. And if that kind of spirit is there, it was not built into the industrial era, unfortunately. We need to build it into the next Society 5.0.
Okay, so the last question. So my understanding is that most of our adults who have legal rights to make various decisions. However, the quality of making the decision may not be as high as it is. And we don't have any relevant information or decision what we tend to make. So what will be your guru mantra for someone who wants to constantly learn and grow personally as well as professionally?
Okay, I would say start with the Upanishads. You have a richness in your culture that I find absolutely fascinating. And I'm saying that as a Christian. I read it for about 2 years. It didn't make sense. And it's gradually making sense as I keep working on this whole area. You have a richness in your culture that it could come alive within yourselves. And it could help all of us, not as a religious belief, but as a deep understanding of the very nature of our common humanness. So Parabhata, the Bhagavad Gita, but especially the Upanishads have been incredibly helpful. And in a sense, believe it or not, as I was teaching in Saudi Arabia, in the Muslim culture, I had the spirit of the Upanishads in my back. I didn't say anything, but I was able to bring those young ladies alive thanks to your culture.
Yeah, so thanks a lot. We have come to the end of the questions. So I would like to thank you for giving such a great insights from your experience and relating everything to the context of Indian culture, the tradition, and to the business management. Thanks a lot. I would hand over to Shadid sir.
Charles, sir, reflecting on what you just said, so many of these people are young professionals and will be future managers. So for them to be aware of what was there in the past is really essential to build a future. And I mean, as you said, it's not about religion. It's actually about being spiritually aware of what is happening around you. You can't just be living in a silos and then expect to change it. Because if you just look from an entrepreneurship perspective, unless you identify a problem out there, you will not build a solution for it. So for that, you need to have that knowledge. That is what I understand from your session. So is there anything you want to add over here?
Well, it's more than knowledge. It's a deep sensitivity that is beyond the five senses. And I don't see it so much religiously. I see it as a foundation and fundament that we all can share, be we Christians, Muslims, Sikhs, Jains, whatever. And there is certainly in your tradition a lot of sharing of these. So it is the insight of the nature of life. If we capture that, we will really survive. When I first arrived in Kolkata, I visited IIM and I met Professor S.K. Chakraborty, and he was setting up a center of values and management, which continues to inspire me. and I have a lot of other wonderful, deep friends in India and in various cultures. So thank you, India. Thank you, Guru India, for all that I have learned. I think I'm ready to start life now after all these years. So hope that touches what you're saying, Shitesh.